What if I told you that the Vancouver Canucks are sitting on a potential nuclear option that could completely reshape their roster overnight, but they're almost certainly too scared to pull the trigger? In the high-stakes chess match that is NHL roster construction, offer sheets represent the most audacious move a team can make. And right now, two rising stars are sitting in limbo, waiting for someone bold enough to make their move. The hockey world loves to whisper about offer sheets like there's some mythical creature that only appears once in a blue moon. And honestly, they're not wrong. These midsummer power plays are rarer than a goaltender scoring a goal, but when they happen, they send shockwaves through the entire league. Today, we're diving deep into the tantalizing possibility that the Vancouver Canucks might just be crazy enough to throw down the gauntlet for not one, but two of the NHL's most promising young talents. The perfect storm. Why McTavish and Rossi are prime targets. Picture this. It's mid-July, the free agency frenzy has settled into a dull roar, and most teams are counting their pennies and nursing their salary cap hangovers. But lurking in the shadows are two restricted free agents who could change everything. Mason McTavish of the Anaheim Ducks and Marco Rossi of the Minnesota Wild. These aren't just any prospects we're talking about. McTavish, the third overall pick in 2021, has already shown flashes of the dynamic two-way center that had scouts drooling during his draft year. Meanwhile, Rossi, despite his injury-plagued early career, represents the kind of elite playmaking ability that can transform an entire offensive system. Both players are sitting in that precarious RFA position where their current teams hold the cards, but a bold rival could swoop in and force their hand. The beauty of targeting these particular players lies in their potential versus their current situations. McTavish finds himself in Anaheim's ongoing rebuild, where development might take precedence over immediate success. Rossi, meanwhile, is battling for ice time in Minnesota's crowded forward group. For a team like Vancouver, desperate to inject young talent into their aging core, these players represent the kind of franchise-altering additions that could accelerate their competitive timeline dramatically. The mathematics of madness. Why $11.7 million changes everything. Here's where things get absolutely wild. According to renowned NHL analyst Stefan Roget from Canucks Army, if Vancouver wanted to make a serious play for either McTavish or Rossi, they'd have to go nuclear. We're talking about an offer sheet worth at least $11.7 million annually. That's not just big money, that's mortgage the future money. At this compensation level, the Canucks would be forced to surrender 4 first-round picks over 5 drafts. Let that sink in for a moment. 4 first-round picks. For most franchises, that's essentially trading away half a decade of top-tier draft capital for one player. It's the kind of all-in move that either catapults you to championship contention or leaves you wandering in the wilderness for years. But here's the kicker, and this is where the psychology of offer sheets gets really fascinating. Both McTavish and Rossi would absolutely love to sign a deal like that. Who wouldn't want to nearly double their earning potential while potentially landing on a team more committed to winning now? The question isn't whether the players would be interested, it's whether they're actually worth that astronomical price tag. When you break down the numbers, you start to see the dilemma facing Vancouver's front office. McTavish, despite his pedigree, is still developing his game and hasn't yet proven he can be a consistent top-line center in the NHL. Rossi, while incredibly skilled, has battled injuries and hasn't had the opportunity to showcase his full potential at the professional level. Are either of these players worth betting your franchise's future on? That's the million-dollar question, or, in this case, the $58.5 million question over 5 years. The Canucks conundrum. Dreams versus reality. Let's be brutally honest about Vancouver's current situation. This isn't a team that's one piece away from a Stanley Cup run. The Canucks are stuck in that uncomfortable middle ground where they're not quite good enough to be legitimate contenders, but they're not bad enough to embrace a full rebuild. It's hockey purgatory and everyone knows it. Making an offer sheet of this magnitude would represent a fundamental shift in philosophy for the organization. It would signal to the league, to the fans, and to their own players that they're ready to mortgage the future for a chance at immediate improvement. But is that really the smartest move for a franchise that's still trying to find its identity? The salary cap implications alone are staggering. Vancouver would need to create significant space to accommodate an $11.7 million hit, which likely means moving out other valuable pieces. Suddenly, you're not just talking about adding McTavish or Rossi, you're talking about completely restructuring your entire roster around one player who hasn't even proven he can carry that kind of responsibility yet. There's also the psychological warfare aspect that makes offer sheets so fascinating. By making such an aggressive move, Vancouver would be essentially declaring war on either Anaheim or Minnesota. They'd be betting that the targeted team either can't or won't match the offer, creating potential long-term consequences in terms of trade relationships and league-wide perception. The expert verdict: why it's more fantasy than reality. Stefan Roget's analysis cuts straight to the heart of the matter with surgical precision. While the Canucks technically have the capability to make these offers, the practical reality makes it extremely unlikely. The combination of salary cap constraints, the astronomical compensation required, and the uncertainty surrounding both players' true value creates a perfect storm of reasons to avoid this strategy. The most telling aspect of Roget's assessment is his observation about Vancouver's current competitive position. For a team that isn't comfortably in a playoff position, committing this level of resources to unproven talent represents the kind of desperate gamble that typically backfires spectacularly. History is littered with franchises that mortgage their future for players who couldn't deliver on their massive contracts. But here's what makes this situation so intriguing. Sometimes desperate gambles pay off. Sometimes a franchise-altering move is exactly what a struggling organization needs to break free from mediocrity. The question is whether Vancouver's management has the stomach for this kind of high-stakes poker when the consequences of being wrong are so severe. The ripple effects. What this means for the hockey world: even if the Canucks don't pull the trigger on an offer sheet, the mere possibility sends ripples throughout the league. It puts pressure on Anaheim and Minnesota to resolve their RFA situations quickly, and it reminds every team that their restricted free agents aren't as secure as they might think. For other franchises watching from the sidelines, Vancouver's situation serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of getting stuck in the middle. When you're not quite good enough to compete, but not quite bad enough to rebuild, you start considering desperate measures. The offer sheet becomes less about strategic team building and more about trying to shock your way back to relevance. The broader implications extend beyond just these three teams. Every general manager in the league is watching to see if someone will break the unwritten code of mutual non-aggression that has kept offer sheets so rare. If Vancouver or another team decides to go rogue, it could open the floodgates for more aggressive tactics across the league. The final verdict: a thrilling possibility that won't happen as we wrap up this deep dive into one of hockey's most fascinating what-if scenarios. The reality becomes crystal clear. While the Vancouver Canucks theoretically possess the tools to make a blockbuster offer sheet for either Mason McTavish or Marco Rossi, the practical obstacles make it about as likely as finding a unicorn skating at Rogers Arena. The math simply doesn't work in Vancouver's favor. The combination of salary cap constraints, the massive compensation required, and the uncertainty surrounding both players' true value creates an equation that no rational management team would solve in the affirmative. It's a beautiful dream for fans hungry for bold moves, but it's destined to remain just that, a dream. What this entire discussion reveals is the fundamental challenge facing middle-tier franchises in today's NHL. The salary cap has created a league where bold moves are increasingly difficult to execute, and teams like Vancouver find themselves trapped between aspiration and reality. The offer sheet represents the ultimate what-if scenario, a nuclear option that could change everything but comes with consequences too severe to seriously consider. So there you have it, the tantalizing tale of what could be the most explosive midsummer move in recent NHL history, and why it's almost certainly never going to happen. Sometimes the most interesting stories in hockey are the ones that exist purely in the realm of possibility, reminding us that in this wild world of professional sports, even the most outlandish scenarios deserve our attention. What do you think? Should the Canucks throw caution to the wind and make that franchise-altering offer sheet? Or would it be the kind of desperate move that sets them back for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of hockey's most intriguing possibilities.